Hi, I'm Arkadiusz Stachowiak and I'm president of Amicitia Foundation. Today I will host extraordinary guests Mr. Tal Sharon and Mr. Witold Wiliński, who will be talking about possible fields of cooperation between Polish and Israeli startup and business ecosystems. Today we host extraordinary guests Mr. Tal Sharon, managing partner at Equitech and president of Fintech Aviv.
Yes.
And Mr. Witold Wiliński, president of WVSC Tech. Good morning.
Hello.
Pleasure being here.
What is Fintech Aviv and what is its role in shaping the global fintech ecosystem?
Sure. So I'll try to be brief because we can talk a lot about it. But Fintech Aviv is the Israeli Fintech Association. We've started in 2014, where we set ourselves a goal to position the Israeli market in the global fintech industry. And fast forward to today, it's one of the largest fintech communities globally. We have over 30,000 members, hosting events almost every month with local and global partners. 60% of the members are local, 40% are global, and it became this hub to connect the local Israeli industry, entrepreneurs, innovation, financial institution, investors, to different markets around the world. And every time we're building the connection based on trends and interest in the global market.
Our Polish business entities are interested in being a member of Fintech Aviv?
Well, there are some. We had the pleasure of working with Witold, of course, and GPW Tech for a while. I think it's not only the Polish Israel is being centralized and being a target by a lot of multinationals who are looking for innovation. There are almost 600 fintechs in Israel for a country that is 0.01 of global population. That's a lot of companies, and we have a great relationship with the Polish industries, with a lot of financial institutions. We had a great project with Witold, which I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit later. So this is why I'm coming here very often, to try and bridge the gap between Israel and Poland in fintech innovation.
Witold, what is the role of the WVSC in building a bridge between the Israeli and Polish business ecosystems?
It's a very good question. We started the cooperation with Fintech Aviv 2 years ago. And from our perspective, Israel is a startup nation, and in the same time, they are very strong in the fintech industry. Of course, we have some similarities. We have a common history, almost 700 years. But now, from the point of view of the technological development, our cooperation is very important. The Polish perspective, I think, is a little bit different because the banking sector, after the communist system, was a very competitive sector. A sector with a lot of international investors, and that is why Poland is very strong in fintech technologies. That's my opinion.
Gentlemen, what are the possible fields for cooperation between Polish and Israeli business in the fintech and innovation sector?
So from my perspective, there are several ways we can look at it. First, there's a lot of Israeli startups that are looking to work globally, and Poland is a great market for that. It's close in proximity, in time differences are not that big. The Polish market is substantial. It's the largest one in the CEE, and for Israeli companies, where Israel is not a target market to almost any of them. They're all looking global. This can be a very good starting point to start and go from here to the rest of the European market. So we see a lot of interest from startups. And what I also witness is also interest from financial institutions to locate technologies in a very tailored, specific manner towards the Israeli market. And actually some fintechs who want to approach the Israeli financial institutions as well to work with. So we kind of connect everything together and try to do the best in our matching between these entities.
May I add one thing? I think that the Polish market, comparing to the German market, the French market, or the British market, is easier for Israeli firms. I mean, this is easier to enter here and easier to invest here, because our economical structure is completely different, which means that in the fintech sector we have a lot of firms from different countries, and we do not have a big monopoly of huge banks, huge national banks, like in France or Germany, for example.
Yeah, and also I think the mentality here is something that a lot of Israeli can relate. You know, you see it on travel, not only on business, but the relationship, the travel relationship between Israel and Poland is very big. I think there are 4 direct flights a day, and myself, I come here like sometime in the morning, get a couple of meetings, and going back in the evening. So it's very easy to navigate your business towards the Polish market if you're coming from Israel.
So we can say that Poland is a great starting point for Israel business to expand further to European Union markets.
Yes, no doubt. The banks here are substantial. The financial institutions here are substantial. So if you're a fintech startup and you're working with one of the financial institutions in Poland, that's a great accreditation point for you to continue and grow. Not to mention, now we see actually companies that are looking to hire developers in Poland because they're really good. The competitive advantage is substantial. The costs, if you compare it to Israel, is also there's a lot of different, and there aren't enough developers.
And the same concerning the Western Europe, yes. Yeah. In terms of salaries in the IT sector, I think that in Poland this is 50% of the situation that we have in Western Europe.
So all these combined are, creating a really good and fertile ground for startups to approach.
How banks and financial institutions challenge the fintech competition?
So this is a too long of a question to go back, but currently we don't see it as a competition. I don't see it as a competition. I think it's there's a word that got a lot of traction, which is a competition. So how can you compete and collaborate at the same time? I think in the past several years, financial institutions are starting to understand that it's not about having a challenge or compete with the fintechs. It's about working with them to create, better transparency, better customer engagement for their customer engagement for their customers, better services. Because the main difference is that a fintech can be very focused. It can be laser focused on a specific avenue or value proposition. Whereas for a financial institution who serves millions of people with a broad area of services, it's very hard to be the best at each one. So if you collaborate with fintechs who are really good at something that they do, you actually build more value to yourselves. And I think our work with Witold was practically that, finding these elements, these fintechs that can create additional value to the work that GPW Tech is currently doing.
Yes, I agree with you, Tal, but in the same time, we can observe a situation in the banking sector and with fintech, like, for example, Revolut or Klarna, which means that there are some companies which are entering in the banking sector with new technologies, and they are gaining new shares of the banking market, which means that it could be dangerous for the old banking sector, and in the same time, what we can expect, this is the role of global players like Facebook, like Google, which are collecting a lot of information about customers, and I think that in the near future, they will enter in the banking services. It's true. So we will have.
They already have. Like Facebook have Facebook Financials and Instagram Pay. It depends on the country. But what you're saying is just a great market enabler, because the banks can't just sit and wait. They're not these giants who can absorb everything. There are new players like Revolut, like hundreds of neobanks, right, and fintechs who are taking very small bits of the market share. But it's not only that, because they're actually, these fintechs are raising public awareness towards fintech, towards better customer service. So why should I stay with my bank? Why wouldn't I receive this great value that I get from fintechs for my banks as well? So in fact, what you're saying, and these challengers are coming into the market right now, right, that we're seeing more and more in the past years, I see them as opportunity, as market enablers, because they pose an opportunity for the banks to see how can better servicing their client might look like. And the end client also sees that, because he receives a far better service, where he asks, okay, why wouldn't my bank will provide me this type of service, this type of great value? So it's became this cycle where banks aren't. It's not that they're afraid of the market share that these fintechs are nibbling. I think they're looking at it more on where should we put ourselves, where should we be when approaching our end customers? What does a customer expect us to deliver him in terms of services that will be aligned with current technology, with trends, with market interest?
Yes.
So it's a bit more complex than a simple competition or a simple collaboration.
Gentlemen, how can we combine Israeli and Polish experiences in the financial services sector? Are there many similarities? What are the differences?
Very difficult question. I think that from the point of view of the development of the fintech sector, what is important, this is the cybersecurity. And I think that the main difference between Israel and between Poland and the whole EU, this is the legal framework that we have in Europe. We have the MiFID II regulation, which is quite important from the point of view of the cybersecurity. Because when you are creating new legal acts related to the fintech sector, the cybersecurity is very important, because this is crucial from the point of view of the final customer. I don't know how it works in Israel, but in Europe, the MiFID II, this is a kind of tool which is very helpful for the development of the fintech sector.
Okay, so in Israel, I think cybersecurity in general in Israel is something like a claim to fame. Okay, it's one of the strongest segment we have in Israel. It's one of the most common one. Almost every country knows about cybersecurity in Israel. We have the mandatory draft, and you have you have a lot of technologies coming out from that, and fintech has a very close relationship with cybersecurity, because any transaction need to be somewhat protected, secured, and the financial industry is being targeted by a lot of attacks, a lot of hackers. So these combined, there are a lot of Israeli startups who are focusing on how can we protect the financial institutions, or how can we deliver a service that is combined with a top of the line cybersecurity aspect. So, and when they're coming as a fintech company, they already have this credential of, okay, in terms of cybersecurity, you're probably very good. So it creates this ease of process when engaging. I'm not aware of how cybersecurity in Poland, like the startups in Poland, how well or not. I'm not trying to compare, but this position of Israel's cybersecurity in global perspective is very strong. And I think when you knock on the door,
that one of the crucial points in Israel, this is the relation between the cybersecurity companies and the military industry. That's the moment when they are starting to grow, and that's a kind of trigger. Yes, it's because really of your political situation in the region. And
so in Israel, they, a tiny country, we don't have a lot of resources to export, and one of the things we can export is knowledge, and cybersecurity has been a very large portion of that. So the government is also supporting these in a lot of initiatives and grants and different laws there for investors or for multinationals who are targeting the Israeli market. And it creates this synergy of technologies going out of Israel and multinationals coming into Israel to see that. And I think that was the initial reason why we said, okay, we should look for innovation in Israel for the Warsaw Stock Exchange, because there might be opportunities which you won't find in Poland, or even if you will find in Poland, it's a good place to try and match, okay, what is my current technology, what am I using currently, versus what is out there, what is the top of the line innovation that I can find, so I can compare between them and see if I'm in a good position or not, even if I'm not implementing, even if I'm not taking a startup and investing or working with it. So this is a very good relationship between these two markets, and it got to a point that the Israeli startups understand that, and they try to see that more and more. Right now, I'm coming, and we're meeting five banks with 4 different startups that they will see. So it's something that is of great value for them.
Because we are running out of time, I have a personal question, Tal. Because this is your next visit to Poland, how do you perceive the dynamics of business development and the startup ecosystem in recent years and maybe decades?
Wow. I love Poland. Pre-COVID, I used to be here every 2 weeks. And I'll put from my perspective in fintech. I can't say about anything else. But even from my very, humble place, we saw a lot of fintechs being implemented in the Polish industry. By ING, by Alio, by GPW. So it becoming something more common, and right now we see also this trend of a lot of new neobanks in Poland that are working. So it's great to see that this market evolves, and it for a market that had a lot of the I'd say underbanked population, the movement has been shifted towards providing them services in a very easy manner, with technology, with reducing the level of services that you can provide. So I see great things, and we see from the financial institutions with their initiatives, and keep producing more stuff to the end customers, and more initiatives to scout and develop internally. So the opportunity, if there was an opportunity here, I think it's only growing.
Gentlemen, thank you for the substantial conversation. I hope we will see each other next time in Warsaw, maybe in Israel. So, thank you.
I'll be more than happy to
Thank you.
host you.
Thank you very much.